الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. It's an honor being here and being able to present for Yasin Educational Center Foundation. And we're talking about the letters of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, specifically to this tonight. I'm going to continue with the letter Imam Hussein alayhi salam wrote to Habib ibn Madahir. من الحسين ibn Ali alayhi salam إلى الرجل الفقيه. And it continues, لا تبخل علينا بنفسك يجازيك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يوم القيامة. To Habib, he writes, Hussein ibn Ali, to the learned man, to the jurist, to the one that has understanding of religion, Habib, that to be able to shed his blood and not to save his blood for himself, to spend his life in the way of Allah, and that Rasulullah will reward him in the day of judgment. When we think about Habib ibn Madahir, when we think about the Shuhada of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and our goal is to become like the companions of the Imams, they are for us examples. When we think about them, one of the concepts that it always comes to mind is this, is that we think about the concept that how did they have this tawfiq of reaching this station. We talked about some of the characteristics of Habib ibn Madahir. We talked about some of the characteristics of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions. We talked about them being fearless. We talked about them having, different attributes. But today we want to talk about or having thabat, having, a firm stance when it comes to religion. But today we want to talk about how did they reach this tawfiq, this success. See, brothers and sisters, many people, they want to do things in life, but it just doesn't happen. We call this ability to do things, and you want that thing to be finalized by God. We call that tawfiq. We call that success. For example, you've seen many people, you're going on a ziyarah trip to the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Many people, for whatever reason, they either don't sign up, they don't have tawfiq of going to that ziyarah, they have a barrier, something happens to them. Sometimes at the last moment, they might even miss the flight, or they might even not be allowed their visa, their problems with the visa, or something. I've spoken to those that have caravans and they take people to ziyarat, they agree that unless Imam Hussein alayhi salam wants someone to come, they will come. If he doesn't, then they will not come. They can be as prepared as they want. They can have as much money as they want. They can be very rich, but they won't have that tawfiq of doing the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So we understand that tawfiq is something that is not just based on our intentions and our planning, that Allah has to authorize things for us and then it will become tawfiq. For example, we can read here in one of the verses of Quran about tawfiq in Surah Hud, 1188. Prophet Shu'aib talks to his people. And when he talks to his people, he tells them, قال يا قوم أرأيتم إن كنت على بينة من ربي ورزقني منه رزقا حسنا. So Prophet Shu'aib talks about to his people, O my people, have you considered if I am upon clear evidence from my Lord and He has provided me with a good provision from Him. He has given me rizqan hasanan. Allah has given me rizqan hasanan. He talks about some of the blessings of Allah, and I do not intend to differ from you in that which I have forbidden for you. I only intend reform as much as I'm able. Then He says, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَعَلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. So there He says, and I do not intend to differ from you in that which I have forbidden you. I intend for reform as much as I'm able, and my success is not but through Allah. So translated tawfiq as success in this translation. Upon Him I have relied, and to Him I return. So he sees this rizq, this bayyana, this clear evidence as tawfiq in reform, as tawfiq in success. Some people have been very successful in their lives, in either in their spiritual life, in their monetary life. Here it says rizqan hasana. It talks about, one of the absolute clear indications or signs of rizq or instances of rizq is provisions. So here you see Prophet Shu'aib talk about rizq and different bounties of Allah as being able, that you see that they've been able to have this tawfiq from Allah. So we have to open up this topic of tawfiq. Tawfiq has a kalami and irfani debate in it. I'm not going to be talking about the theology about the theology inside tawfiq. I'm not going to be talking about that tonight. But we're going to be talking and looking at the hadith and looking at ways to increase our success. Ways that how the companions of Imam Hussein, at the end, they had the tawfiq of helping Imam Hussein. How? Why? Many people did not have that tawfiq. There were many people, 10,000, 18,000 letters from Kufa. But at the end, only 70 people had that tawfiq, that success of defending Imam Hussein and being a martyr with Imam Hussein. So we have to analyze this, and we need for ourselves to take a step back. We think sometimes that everything in this world works sometimes na'udhu without God. That if you plan something and you want something, then it should happen and it will happen. But that's not necessarily the case. Look at some of the hadith that we have from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Ma kulla man nawa shay'an qadara alayh. It's not as if this way, when someone has an intention that thing will happen. Imam Sadiq is telling us, it's not as if you have an intention today, say, I want to do something even small. I want to do this, action. I want to go visit this person today. It's not as if any intention you have, it's going to happen. وَلَا كُلَّ مَنْ قَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٍ وُفِّقَ لَهُ. So therefore, it's not as if everything that has happened, that person has tawfiq of doing it. So therefore, we open up this hadith and we understand that tawfiq is something that a mu'min needs, as you see in one of the hadith from Ahlul Bayt, a mu'min, from the three attributes that they need, one of them, they need tawfiq, they need success. Brothers and sisters, the fact that you pray salat, you do salat, is this tawfiq min indillah? Is this tawfiq success from Allah, or is this just you? You have to, examine this. Look at some of the commentary of this verse of Quran that we have, 1188. Imam Sadiq actually was asked about this verse. And the way that he explains this verse of tawfiq, they ask him, what is it? And he answers in this way, in this hadith, that he says, yes, this is verse, ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, so that inshallah I can have the tawfiq of reading this hadith for you. فقال إذا فعل العبد ما أمره الله عز وجل به من طاعة كان فعله وفقا لأمر الله. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam explains tawfiq this way, that when an abd does something that Allah has commanded, and it is what, that obedience happens, then it is wifqan li amrillah wa summiya al-abd bihi muwaffaqan. And when he does that and performs that action that Allah has commanded, that action is called success. So therefore, you see, when he does that, it is in the hands of God and Allah allows him, and therefore he has success. وَإِذَا أَرَادَ الْعَبْدِ أَنْ يَدْخُلَ فِي شَيْءٍ مِّن مَعَاصِيِ اللَّهِ فَحَالَ اللَّهُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ تِلْكَ الْمَعْصِيَةِ فَتَرَكَهَا كَانَ تَرْكُهُ لَهَا بِتَوْفِيقِ اللَّهِ. Again, when someone wants to sin and Allah puts a barrier, na'udhu billah, he's going to go with his friends to a haram gathering. And on the way, his friend's car runs out of gas. I don't know, or his Tesla runs out of a charger and it's going to be too late. Let's say it runs out of charge and it's going to be too late for them to come. Then Allah had put a barrier. A lot of times we understand from these hadith that our sins, na'udhu billah, we are coming to sin, and we realize that sometimes Allah prevents us from sinning. Allah prevents this from happening, and they say, it's min indallah, this is from tawfiq, from Allah. Then the hadith continues, and we read this. أن ترجع بتوفيق الله تعالى ومتى خلي بينه وبين المعصية فلم يحل بينه وبينها حتى يرتكبها فقد خذله ولم ينصره ولم يوفقه. Sometimes Allah does not provide that barrier. So therefore, Allah has left them. The hadith says, فَقَدْ خَذَلَهُ, Allah leaves him alone, وَلَمْ يُوَفِّقُهُ, and doesn't give him this success. So very interesting, in this hadith, you're seeing ma'asiyah is when Allah leaves you alone. Sin is when Allah leaves you alone. Ta'ah and obedience is tawfiqun min indallah. Tarkun ma'asiyah and not sinning is tawfiq min indallah. So therefore, we see that it's not necessarily just us. We have irada, we have free will. But at the end, Allah has to give us that success, or else that won't happen. Because He is one of the specific, parts of Tawheed is that Rububi Tawheed, that Allah is our Lord, that He is the only effective source in this world. So therefore, even when it comes to our free will, at the end, Allah has to give us that tawfiq and has to give us that authorization for that action to happen. So therefore, we have to realize tonight, what can grant us success? What gives us success? Is it in a way that Allah grants success randomly, that He chooses some people and they will go to Hajj and they will pray and they will turn and do Tawbah? Is it just randomly? Obviously not. Because if it was just random, Allah wouldn't be Hakim. Allah wouldn't be wise. If it was random, then Allah would not be just. Because this tawfiq, someone had tawfiq to go to heaven, and someone didn't have tawfiq to go to heaven. He went to hell. So you say, what happened? They went to hell, he just didn't have tawfiq. So we, as Shi'as, when we examine in theology the concept of tawfiq, just like the concept of guidance and hidayah, we understand that at the end, that guidance is min indillah, it is from Allah. But, so then how does it work? How can we work with that final tawfiq and success, but also at the same time believe in our free will as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam? Then we understand this, that there are things that we do, that these actions will give us tawfiq. There are intentions that we have, actions that we have, beliefs that we have. And these things are so good that it calls for us to have tawfiq. That's why you see in the hadith from Imam Ali in Qurar al-Hikam has many hadith about tawfiq. At-tawfiq inayah. Tawfiq is a grace from Allah, is a blessing from Allah. It is something that is from God. At-tawfiq rahmah. Success is rahmah of Allah. Really think about it. A lot of times we just think that these things are just so random, and you just come to the majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and it's random, and you think that, okay, I'm here, I just happened, but it's not random. This, from what we understand, it's not as the hadith says, "Ma kulla man nawa shay'an qadara alayh." It's not as if everything that you have an intention is going to happen. So therefore you understand that this is an invitation, that you have done something that Allah has brought you, not to my majlis, of course. I mean, they're much better majlis than my majlis. Of course, when you listen to the majlis of Imam Hussein, you don't even should really think about the speaker too much. You're reflecting on Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You're thinking of the hadith of Ahl al-Bayt alayhi salam. So therefore you realize that each and every one of you have been brought here. And when things happen, it happens for a purpose. Sometimes there's tawfiq in that action, and sometimes there's not tawfiq, but we understand that tawfiq is rahmah, that tawfiq is inayah, that tawfiq is something good that you do, someone that prayed for you for that to happen, some qualification that you had, and that Allah gave you and opened up the doors for you. And of course, one of the greatest tawfiqs is to be at the service of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and Muharram. This is one of the best things. Just to show you how much important tawassul and tears are. Allama Tabatabai, who wrote commentary of the Quran, he wrote Al-Mizan. They shared and recited for him a sentence about Ali Akbar, the son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he kept saying Eid, Eid, repeat, and he kept crying and crying for Ali Akbar of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The same Allama that would fast and break his fast with a kiss on the shrine of Lady Ma'suma. He says, I want to break my fast with the kiss of the shrine of Lady Ma'suma. Wala'i, on it. And he kept crying about this poetry of Imam Hussein, and he says, I'm willing to make a trade. Ayatollah Alavi Burujerdi mentions this. I saw this. He says, I was there, and he says, I'm willing to trade the reward of Al-Mizan. Imagine, it's the Quran. It's the reward, the fadl of Quran upon other speech as, the fadl of Allah upon other beings. There's no comparison to the Quran. He says, I'm willing to trade Al-Mizan. I'm willing to trade it for this one line of poetry for Ali Akbar. He says, but that person that recited this line isn't that religious. And what do you think Allama says? He said that I don't know if Allah will accept Al-Mizan from me. But I know that in the day of judgment, if I have this poetry for Ali Akbar, I know that Imam Hussein will not neglect me and will not let me go. I know that this line for Ali Akbar is so precious for Imam Hussein. It is his son. It is the best of people most comparable to the Prophet of Islam in terms of speech, in terms of looks, in terms of behavior. And when he died in front of Imam Hussein, we'll mention this inshallah, the night of Ali Akbar, Ya Ali ba'dika al-afa, after you may the dust be on this world. So when he says this, and Imam Hussein, Allama understands that Imam Hussein has that strong ability to take and save people. He's willing to trade these things. So therefore, when you can have tawfiq of the majlis of Imam Hussein, however it is, some countries they're in lockdown. Some centers that we have to do it online. It doesn't matter. It is all the majlis of Imam Hussein. It doesn't matter. The benefit of this is in your homes. You're not right now, you're listening to me. The majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam has come to your houses. So therefore we see that these things that we have, ziyarat of Imam Hussein, crying for Imam Hussein. Sometimes actually you notice you have a lot of tears one night for Imam Hussein. Sometimes you feel you have a lot of, you burn for Imam Hussein. You burn for the children of Imam Hussein and you cry. Sometimes you notice however much you try to cry, it just won't happen. These are things that are called tawfiq. That's why you ask for these majalis and more. before these things, Allah, give me tears for Imam Hussein. Let me burn for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Give me this love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because if you give me this love and my heart sets on fire, I will become Husseini. I will love his Hussein alayhi salam. I will become like Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I will have salvation. I will reach salvation. So therefore you see, La yanfa'u ijtihad bighayr tawfiq for Imam Ali alayhi salam. May Allah give us inshallah tawfiq of ziyarat al-najaf inshallah. La yanfa'u ijtihad bighayr tawfiq. Ijtihad in Arabic means strife, to try, effort. Effort doesn't have benefit. Effort, you put a lot of effort into something, it doesn't even benefit you, Imam Ali in this hadith says, بِغَيْرَ tawfiq, unless you have tawfiq, unless you have success. You can have the best business plan, you can have the best credit, you start a business, and you open up a restaurant, you open something up online to sell best ideas. It just doesn't happen at the end. You just don't have tawfiq at the end. So therefore, we are looking at ways for us, inshallah, tonight to have more tawfiq. A tawfiq, awwalu ni'mah, from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Tawfiq is the first ni'mah. Some have tawfiq of having a good spouse. Some have tawfiq of having good children. Some have tawfiq of having good neighbors. So you're looking, some have tawfiq of good salat, good conversation. Some have tawfiq of reciting ziyarah. They say Ayatollah Bahjat, mujtahid, a great person, he had the tawfiq of every day in his life, they said. Every day in his life, he did ziyarah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Every day, either he was in Qom, or he was in the Shrine of Lady Ma'asuma, or in Najaf, or in summer times, usually he was in Mashhad. Every day he would do ziyarah. And usually his ziyarahs were long, usually 2-3 hours. Every day, usually he would do ziyarat al-Jami' Kabir. Usually. What kind of tawfiq do you think, how does that person become after 70 years of every day going to the shrines of Ahlul Bayt? What happens to them? So that's a tawfiq, right? That's success. So inshallah, we want to increase our tawfiq. What are ways to increase our tawfiq? One of the hadith we have is, Man tafakkara fi ala'illah subhanahu wafiq. Whoever thinks about the signs of God, he will have tawfiq. So one of the ways is thinking, one of the ways is remembering, one of the ways is looking at the signs of Allah, and you will realize Allah. Going from makhluq and creation to creator, to khaliq. When you look around you all the time, brothers and sisters, don't be blind when it comes to the signs of God. Don't be a materialist. Look around and really think. I mean, it's very clear that this design needs a designer. This organization needs an organizer. That any way else, that when you see a watch, and some of the theologians say the watchmaker analogy, as if you come up with a watch and you see how intricate it is, how many gears it has. A watch has to be made perfectly for it to tell time, for every second to be perfect, to rotate in a way that every second is perfect. So after 24 hours, and how many seconds that is, it is exact. Is it possible that you come up with this watch and you say that this watch has just been randomly, has been randomly created? No, you look at organization, you look at the gears, you look at the structure, you look at the design, you say, wow, what a nice watch. Or when you look at the universe, the fine-tuned universe, like that watch, and everything is working perfectly, that orbit is working perfectly, calculated, day and night is working perfectly, much more intricate than you can imagine. What's interesting is when you look at the signs inside us, Allah, these are all signs. You have signs within you. You have signs outside of you. Signs outside, look at the greenery, look at the sands, the deserts, look at the blue sky, look at different things. You can even look at the smog. and say, mashallah, look how many cars we have, mashallah, how many humans Allah created, and all this smog, for example. Whatever, this all goes back to in ways that goes to the creation of God. Then you have signs within. Look at the different systems that you have. Your vision and how accurate vision is. And if we have ever created a camera, is such high quality with such resolution as the eyes, and that depth perception that you have. And you see things, in front of you, and you see things behind you in 3D, obviously, in different dimensions. And you look at how intricate your nervous system is. One of the signs that we have inside us that actually during the pandemic, people have been studying more is the immune system. One of the most complicated systems. We have the cardiovascular system, we have the nervous system. I'm not a doctor, but those that are doctors here watching, I'm sure they know. The immune system is actually one of the most complicated systems that we have. Different types of cells, analyzing that bacteria, figuring things out, figuring what will destroy that, and then producing it, giving it to other cells, and then multiplying and attacking that bacteria. It's a war, actually, the immune system. And so many different parts all coming together. So when you look at all these, you see these are signs of Allah. You see that everywhere you are, you're surrounded with signs. Everywhere you are, you're surrounded with God. So then how come I tell myself this? Then how come I am so neglectful of God? How can I look at the sun and not think of God? How can I look at the sky and not look at Allah? How come when I see my hands, I don't think of Allah? How come when I look at my own body, I don't think of Allah? How come when I think of my mind, I don't think of God? Just that 2 minutes, 5 minutes in prayer, a little bit, I think of God. Where I'm thinking about, did I already pray this prayer, or did I not pray this prayer? And I'm in shak all the time. So unfortunately, one of the things that we miss out all the time is tafakkur. When somebody thinks, and that's the problem that we have, and that people do not become religious, is that they don't think. When they don't think, then they won't think about the origin. They won't think about where they came from, who God is. When they don't think of the hereafter, and they don't like to think of the hereafter. They don't think that there must be another world where we are rewarded, where there must be the rewards must be much higher than this world. The justice must be much higher than this justice in this world, because we have a good Lord. So therefore, one of the important ways to receive tawfiq is to think. And also this goes in line with, I think, planning, you could say too. We have material causes and spiritual causes. Remember, when we talk about in Islam, Allah always, you see in hadith, all the time, that you should plan things well. You should do your due diligence. Many of the problems that we face is from not planning, from not using my aql and intellect, from not learning. We have resources available. A lot of universities right now have their resources available. Any problem you have right now, you can find the solution. Imam Ali very beautifully talks about, if you have a problem, if there's a makruh or something you despise, look, and if there's a hila, if there's a solution, la ta'jaz. Don't be weak and feeble. Go and find the solution to that problem. One of the problems we have is we think that just things are just solved by du'as only. You don't want to find the material solution. No, we have to find the material solution. But here, because this is a religious talk, a spiritual talk, we're talking about that, how to get that tawfiq, how to get that other part, that finalization, that success. One is, we have the traditions. Tawfiq is from where? From thinking about Allah. What else do you think causes us tawfiq? Things that has a lot of barakat in it is salat. When someone is part of the musallin, when salat is mi'raj al-mu'min, when you look at some of the traditions about the reward of salat. Every wajib, salat is interesting. It's our duty. But look at the hadith. It has so much reward, like Hajj and Umrah. It has like that type of reward after a wajib salat. When we protect our salat, when we are careful of our salat and prayer, you will be granted tawfiq. There are people, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, they just walk and a lot of things, aspects in their life, it just works, clicks. They just have tawfiq of this, tawfiq of that. And a lot of this might be because of they're careful of their salat. They're careful of their relationship with God. And they make dua and they get tawfiq. Therefore, protecting ourselves, protecting our salat. You see that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the day of Ashura, with that huge ocean and sea of enemies that he had, that he still did salat, and they did salat together. So therefore, you see that protecting our salat. You know, one of the things maybe the COVID has granted us is that many of us, we miss jama'ah. We miss salat jama'ah. We miss congregational prayers. We miss praying together, doing dua together. Maybe after COVID, we realized how ungrateful we were for these things. How ungrateful we were, you know, of these centers, of our masajid, and they had to be shut down and taken away from us. That tawfiq of the masjid, the tawfiq of the center was closed for us. And hopefully after things open up eventually, whenever Allah decides it is appropriate, then we will rush and open up the masajids good, and we would be very grateful for these things, inshallah. The third, and I don't want to make it too long, is giving respect to parents. Giving respect to parents will give you a lot of tawfiq, will give you success. I have seen myself, people that have helped their parents. I have a family member, they helped one of their family members in surgery, and they stayed with them and took care of their mom. And after a while, that parent, you know, told them, inshallah, your hand, you know, hits the shrine of Imam Hussein, or, you know, you go to Hajj, inshallah. You know, they did this dua, and then immediately afterwards, they went to Karbala, they went to Hajj. So you see that when parents pray for you, when parents pray, and a lot of times there are stories of some of the Urafa, and people go to them to say, you know, I have never been successful with my business, you know, what's going on? Yes, sometimes, as we said, things are closed. Someone, his qismat and his destiny is supposed to be a test of poverty. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about situations where in terms of the material realm and in terms of the spiritual realm, it can open up and you can have tawfiq. So they went to one of the Urafa, and he was wondering how, I listened to you, I did this dhikr that you mentioned. It didn't work. I'm just struggling financially. And he thought for a while, and then he mentioned, he says, your relationship with your father is not good. Relationship with your father is not good. And then he says, Allahu Akbar. Even the sheikh, he found out that I'm not too good, and he found out that he had some issues with his father. Do not have any issues with them, even if they do dhulm to you. The tradition says, even if they're unbelievers, give respect to them, be careful of them. It is one of the most life-changing things that you can do. Respect them, enjoy your time with them. These are great things, and they will do dua for you, and you'll have success. Many people, I have one of my own study partners. He was explaining to me, crying and saying this. He says, I became an alim, I became a scholar because of the dua of my mother. He says, my mother became sick, and after a while, she became paralyzed very fast. And I would carry her around, on my shoulders, on my back. I would carry her where she needed to go. I carried her, and she would do dua for me. And he says, I owe being, a student of Imam Sadiq from the dua of my mother. So some of us might say, well, we don't have parents, or one of our parents have passed away. It doesn't matter. When you visit their graves, when you do good things for them, it's in the same way. We actually have du'as that if you want something to be answered, go to the grave of your parents and do 2 rakat salat, and you'll be granted your du'as, inshallah. So not leaving them out. This is Muharram. This is a specific time. Many of them that have passed away, they're looking at us and they're wanting reward, they're wanting thawab. And just the fact that you're a good child for them, it means that they're getting reward. And then when you make, cry for, give some of the tears that you shed, say, this is, for my parents, inshallah. Or, if while your parents are alive, you shed tears, you ask Allah to give them, inshallah, more tawfiq, inshallah. And this is one of the life-changing things that we have. So tafakkur we talked about tonight, granting us tawfiq, inshallah. We understand that salat, protecting our salat, and you can say in general, not sinning and following the commands of God, this will grant you tawfiq and you'll be happy in the dunya and akhirah. And at the end, respecting your parents. So these are things that I'm sure that the companions like Habib ibn Madahir have done, and that they had that tawfiq of being with Imam Hussein in the dunya and in the akhirah. The best, best thing, and we read in Ziyad Ashura, that, I want to be with you in the dunya and akhirah, inshallah. Tonight, it's going to be a very heart-wrenching musibah that we have to read. May Allah give us patience, inshallah. I'm very sorry. First, I'd like to apologize to our master and our Maulana Imam Zaman, because some of these musibats, it takes someone like me that has a hardened heart to recite, because they shouldn't be recited. Maybe they shouldn't be recited this way. The martyrdom of Ali Asghar, a 6-month-old baby of Imam Hussein. Maybe that's just enough for you to cry. Because you've seen how many of you are parents. You've seen how it is when you walk with a baby, or you have your child, in your stroller, and there's a car, and immediately, they're watching to stop, so that nothing happens to that baby. You see how much importance society gives on children. The day of Ashura should have been opposite. This is how things should have been done. That Imam Hussein brings his child Ali Asghar, and then the army would say, stop, there's a child here. He might get hurt. Stop your arrows, stop your shouting. This child doesn't have water. How much water does a child need, a baby need like Ali Asghar? Mothers know. Children, how much, maybe a spoon would be enough for him. Maybe the end of a cup would be enough for him. This is what should have happened. Stop the war. There's a child present. There's a baby present. But the opposite happened. Not only did they not stop, but they actually aimed. They aimed. Harbala ibn Kahil, you see Ziyad down here. Harbala aimed at the throat of Ali Asghar. It burnt the heart of Imam Hussein so much that this is one of the places where a sound comes from heaven. Di'hu ya Hussein, leave him, ya Hussein. This is one of the places where Allah gives tasliyat and Allah calms Imam Hussein. From all the musibats, the one place that Allah calms Imam Hussein is with Ali Asghar. This is one of the places in musibats that when they come to Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, he mentioned that Mukhtar is seeking revenge. And he specifically asked, he had killed some of the killers of Imam Hussein. He specifically asked in hadith, in history, what about Harbala? What about Harbala? Imam Sajjad was waiting for Harbala to be killed. Waiting because Harbala set Imam Hussein's heart on fire. So we read in Ziyad Nahiyat, we recite in Ziyarat. I apologize again, I said Imam Zaman, I apologize. We have some of our ulama, we had in history that they wouldn't recite musibat in front of him. Those that are especially from India, they know who he is. Ayatollah Mir Hamid Hussain Lakhnawi from Lucknow, Sahib Abaqat al-Anwar. They say that they wouldn't recite musibat in front of him, and once accidentally someone recited, He wrote one of the best books in the defense of Imam Ali alayhi salam, about 100, 200 years ago. And they saw that Seyed had passed away. Seyed passed out. Seyed had passed out. He had fainted because they recited the musibah. This is in books. That in front of him, they wouldn't recite the musibah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. As-salamu ala Abdullah ibn Hussein. Some of the books talk about Ali al-Asghar as Abdullah al-Radi. Radi means the infant child that was breastfed. Al-Radi, child, a tifl. الطفل الرضيع المرمي الصريح. So peace upon Ali ibn Hussein alayhi salam, the child that was hidden and متشحط دماء, that this child, his blood was covered. المسعد دمه في السماء. This child, this is actually from, I believe in Ziyad Nahiya, that Imam Zaman is attributed. Nahiya means, Samir Ra, Nahiya al-Muqaddasa. This is from the Ziyarat from Imam Zaman attributed to him. Salam to Ali Asghar, he's saying. Salam to Abdullah bin Hussein, that cliff that was fallen on the ground. He was fallen on the ground, covered with blood. Al-Musa'ad dabuhu fi sama. Imam Hussein took the blood of Ali Asghar and raised it towards the sky. And they say that blood never came down. That infant blood. We're talking about infant blood. I was in Karbala 3 months ago, and I was just imagining what would happen if I removed all the shrines and I would just to see those dead bodies, how they were. I was imagining. And I just imagining all the shuhada, they're headless, just staying there. Imam Hussein, his head severed. Ali Akbar, Muqatta al-A'da, hip severed. Then I was thinking, what about Ali Asghar? The child buried without a head because that arrow did what a sword did. Al-Madbuh bis-Sahm fi Hijr. That was Madbuh here, it says. It says that he was libr. Maybe we shouldn't translate some of this. We shouldn't translate. La'anullah ramihi harmala. Tribute to Imam Zaman. May God's curse be on the shooter Hammala ibn Kahil al-Asadi wa Dawi. So you see Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it is the day of Ashura, and he's crying and claiming, Hal min muwahhidin yakhafu Allahu fina. Is there any monotheist that is afraid of Allah to help us? Hal min mughithin yarju Allah fi ighathatina. Is there anyone willing, hoping to seek God in our help? Is there anyone that will help? Some say Imam Sajjad heard this call and then he stood up, but it wasn't the time for Imam Sajjad to battle. He was sick. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam, truly alone, he asks his sister to bring Ali Asghar, as if Ali Asghar answers that call. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, فَتَقَدَّمَ إِلَى بَابِ الْخِيمَةِ. He comes to the doors of the tent. Inshallah, you have the tawfiq of visiting Imam Hussein alayhi salam. You have the tawfiq of visiting the tents of Imam Hussein, this area called Mukhayyam. And you see where the tent of Imam Hussein is. See the tent of other members of his family, his companions, where they were. He comes to the tent. فَتَقَدَّمَ إِلَى الْبَابِ الْخِيمَةِ وَنَادَى يَا زَيْنَبْ نَاوَلِينِي وَلَدَ الصَّغِيرِ. O Zainab, bring me my child, my infant child. أَلَا تَرَوْنَهُ كَيْفَ يَتَلَذَّ عَطَشًا. Don't you see how he has taladhi, and because of thirst? Taladhi, they say, is like a fish that is out of water. A fish that comes out of water, first you see it jump to come back into water. But then when it loses hope and it's finally dying, see that fish will remain calm and not move anymore, but only you see its mouth open and close, open and close. They call this taladhi. Taladhi of Ali Asghar. Don't you see how Ali Asghar's small lips, this child's small lips like a fish, is opening and closing? So Imam Hussein alayhi salam brings Ali Asghar and says, In lam tarhamuni farhamu hada radi. If you aren't going to have mercy with me, then at least have mercy with this infant. Some that have studied Ashura, they say this is the sign of Imam Hussein's oppression, Ali Asghar. Because no matter what, Imam Hussein has done nothing wrong, but no matter what side you choose, how can you kill an infant? What sin has an infant done? What sin has, say, a 6-month-old done? بينما يخاطبهم, I want to feel, maybe you can feel a little bit the heart of Imam Hussein, what feeling it is when you have your baby infant in front of you. And while he's speaking to them, إذ رماه حرملة بنكاح الأسد بسهم له 3 شعب, then Harmala hits him with the 3-headed arrow. How that makes Imam Hussein feel. فذبح الطفل من الأذن إلى الأذن, and the tifl is killed. Then a sound comes from the heaven. Ya Hussein, this is what I talked about. Ayatollah Abdul Karim Ha'iri saying, this is one of the times where Allah gave calmness to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. A sound comes, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, leave him. Leave this baby, leave their child. It's very difficult for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, extremely difficult for his child to be in front of him headless. فَإِنَّهُ لَهُ مُرْضِعَةً فِي الْجَنَّةِ. Leave him, Hussein, he's in a good place. His thirst will be quenched in heaven. His thirst was not quenched. This baby died thirsty. What sin did this baby do to die thirsty? And this is the part that breaks our backs. This is the part, imagine it's the day of Ashura. Take yourselves there. Imam Hussein, how is he going to go back? Where is he going to go? How is he going to go back to the tents? فَرَجَعَ الْحُسَيْنِ إِلَى الْمُخَيَّمِ. Imam Hussein alayhi salam goes back to the tent. مُنْكَسَرًا حَزِينًا بَاكِيًا. He's broken. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is broken. They broke the back of our master. They broke the heart of our master, Seyed al-Shuhada. May God curse Harbala. Hazinan, in grief. Few places you see in Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam is just crying. Bakiyan, he is crying and coming back. What does he do when he sees the tent of Ali Asghar, when he sees the cradle of Ali Asghar? The cradle where a few minutes ago his child was sleeping and now there's no more Ali Asghar. What is he going to do? What is Rabab going to do when finally she is captive and they give her water and now she has milk? What feeling is that going to give Rabab that later on she will have milk but have no more baby? How is Imam Hussein going to explain to Rabab what just happened? Ya Allah, we ask you because of Ali Asghar, his tiny hands, this baby's tiny hands will open up the most difficult of knots in your life, will give you the most tawfiq, inshallah. If you remember Ali Asghar, you remember the symbol of oppression of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Ya Allah, we ask you because of the honor of Ali Asghar. We ask you because of the difficult test of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to give us tawfiq min indak. Give us tawfiq from you. Give us tawfiq in our dunya. Give us tawfiq in our akhirah. Give us health, inshallah. Give us wealth. Give us high spirituality. Give us the entire world, the tawfiq of staying healthy. Many brothers right now, sisters right now, they're in hospitals. Allah, inshallah, because of Ali Asghar, remove them from the hospitals healthy. We pray for our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan right now. They don't know what's going to happen to them. They have been killed and martyred and massacred throughout history by the Taliban. Look at what happened in Mazar Sharif about 20 years ago. We're scared that the same thing might happen. We're doing dua for our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, doing duas for our brothers and sisters in Iran and Iraq, inshallah, in Lebanon, in Bahrain, in India, in Pakistan, in the US, in the UK, in Kuwait, and throughout in Nigeria, throughout the entire Shia world, in Kashmir. We're praying for all the Muslims throughout the entire world, for the Palestinians, because of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his great sacrifice with Ali Asghar. Ya Allah, we ask you to be us to have the tawfiq of being loyal to our Imam and to not neglect our holy Imam, and that you expedite his return. Ya Allah, we ask you to give this thawab of this majlis to the marhumin, inshallah, of you, and to, inshallah, forgive their sins, inshallah. Let's recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you for joining us. Keep us in your du'as. Goodbye, everyone.